Throughout human history, one thing has been a constant: crime. There are many types of crimes committed and many types of investigators who look into them. Criminals get very creative to stay ahead of the law. Find out crime doesn't pay. Join Jason Esty as he dissects various crimes, mysteries, and disappearances.
Crime Maze.
Hello everyone, my beautiful YouTube community everywhere and on other platforms. Hello my friends and fans and people new to my channel. Welcome everyone, and I sincerely thank all of you, of course, that have subscribed to my channel. This channel is starting to take off, my friends, and one of the reasons I believe is I just did a video exposing EMBREE. That's right. I had a lot of people disagree with me and bash me. Some people actually agreed with me. Many though didn't. But this video, I actually want to apologize to EMBREE.
We're so sorry if we caused you any pain.
I want to change my tune a little bit. But before I get into that more, again, sincerely, everyone, if you think I have value to share with humanity, if you enjoy my videos, and again, we can agree to disagree, but I hope you might subscribe, people new to this channel. I'm Jason, and I go by ESTEY'S Crime Maze. So I hope you'll subscribe. I hope you might smash that like button. Again, if you enjoy my videos, helps with the algorithms, as I always say, as well as hitting that bell icon. You get to be notified for future videos. And again, feel free to leave me a comment. And I read them, everyone. I read every single comment so far, and they keep rolling in. Just as I put this video, I think 2 nights ago, I've got hundreds of comments on exposing EMBREE, giving my thoughts. I was trying to be as honest as I could. I was trying to be as respectful overall as I could, but firm, because I'm a masculine man. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything to do with the IDAHO4 if I can help it. And nor should any of us, my friends. This case is absolutely vitally important on several different levels, right? And we'll get into more of that importance of the IDAHO4 in future videos. But today, I think maybe it's somewhat important that I do this. I sincerely apologize to EMBREE on aspects of what I said on that video. You know, I was exposing EMBREE because I don't believe an atrocity ever occurred. EMBREE will absolutely know that from me when he listened to my long video and a little bit of a rant. But EMBREE knows that I think the circumstantial evidence is absolutely overwhelming when you connect the dots, my friends. And when you look at real federal programs, and we're going to get into it, but that this was a staged crime scene. The students, they weren't. It wasn't any quadruple homicide like we've been told, my friends. That's just another the biggest lie of the case, along with briankohberger, right? And EMBREE's absolutely correct. briankohberger did not do this crime. He probably had nothing to do with it, other than I do think he was on an assignment, working with the feds, and maybe even agreeing to be in the trial right now because it's a perfect distraction. Okay? Yeah, the rabbit hole is really deep, my friends. We'll get into more of briankohberger and my thoughts on this individual. Again, in future videos, you can look forward to that, my friends, okay? But again, let's go back to EMBREE. And what I want to portray in this video, sincerely, I apologize. You see, when EMBREE, though, when he's done apology videos with some of the other YouTube content creators, because again, sometimes we go a little bit too far maybe in the way we say something about somebody else, you know, whether we're giving a critique, a constructive criticism. You know, nobody's perfect. Certainly, I'm not perfect. I think many of you already realize that have watched my videos. But I try my best, my friends. And EMBREE, he'll apologize. He'll use the word, I apologize. But I don't think he's actually ever said, I'm sorry. I'll even go so far as to not only apologize to EMBREE, and even some of his followers out there. He's got an amazing community by and large, by the sounds of it. Even though a lot of them bash me for exposing their man, EMBREE. They call him the alpha male. Well, maybe. You got to keep on that TRT, right, EMBREE, though? I'm half kidding with you, man. Especially if you want a boxing match with me, as I challenged you, we can raise money for charity, buddy. And let me interview you, of course. Let's do an interview together, my friend. Anyway, I digress. What I wanted to say, my friends, is not only do I apologize, but I'll say to Jay Embree right now and address him, because he'll probably watch this video. The last video he said came across his feed. You know, I'm sorry, Jay Embree. And you know why I'm sorry, Jay Embree, to your audience? I'm sorry because in my video, in trying to expose you, in trying to just basically give you constructive criticism, I think it's very important that, again, no atrocity took place, that you keep putting out that FBI narrative, though, Jay Embree. We'll talk about that maybe in future videos. But I sincerely apologize, and I'm sorry, Jay Embree, that I said that I didn't say for certain, but I said I'm pretty sure that you didn't talk about the WITSEC program. And I was wondering why, right? And I told you in my video, the acronym stands for Federal Witness Protection Program, right there in the United States. And I mentioned some of the locations. Jay Embree never mentioned this in his video, by the way, but it was very extensive. Actually, I'll play the clip for you, my friends, but I find it interesting. You know, he said he got it from AI. He claimed that he did a lot of research on it. It took him a lot of time to put this together. He did slides and a presentation, right? But, he used AI, which is fine. But I find it curious. Again, this is all from the FBI, my friends. Remember, sure, there's truth in this video that I'm about to play you from Jay Embree, my friends. But remember, the FBI's also mandate at times, just like the CIA, is to lie, deny, and deceive at the expense of American taxpayers. That's right, my friends. And remember, the FBI is trying to convince you from day one that an actual atrocity took place, when I believe it was all staged, my friends. It was an extraction removal operation. The feds rescued those students. And we'll get into that more in future videos, my friends. That's where I agree to disagree with Jay Embree. I think it's very, very important to get to the bottom of this. Who's right, my friends? Is Jay Embree right that an atrocity actually took place, that we should just believe the feds, you know, from day one telling us that it took place, when there's no evidence, by the way, my friends? As I talked about in my last video on Embree, right? There is absolutely no concrete evidence to show that those students were even alive. We've got no raw crime scene, uncensored photos of the crime scene. Usually that's leaked, right? Especially nowadays with mainstream media, as I said. We've had no autopsy photos leaked. Nothing, my friends. Okay? Those are huge red flags. And we could go on and on. So I'm sorry, though, that I said to Jay Embree that he never talked about WITSEC, because I'll show you the video, everyone. But in that video of the WITSEC video, by the way, everyone, they don't talk about private drivers, how that works. They don't literally say that they will extract students at times, or people, you know, individuals or groups, and they will remove them out of the country. It doesn't tell you, my friends, that the United States have WITSEC programs and this infrastructure all across the United States. They kind of allude to it maybe a little bit in the video, but they don't tell you that they literally have programs in places like Puerto Rico, where I think those 4 students or some of them are located. Yes, my friends. And we have them even in my powerful country of Canada as well, as I say, in places like Labrador, I found out. You won't hear that in this video, even though there's some very good information, again, that the FBI has let out to the public about some of these programs and how they work, how they operate. It's quite interesting. And I'll play it for you. Are you ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3.
So without further ado, now this isn't Pav narrating. I had to create this video using those words. So I used some AI voiceovers, and but it's very, very educational on the WITSEC program, I assure you. So here we go.
The ability of a witness to give testimony in a judicial setting or to cooperate with law enforcement investigations without fear of intimidation or reprisal is essential to maintaining the rule of law. Increasingly, local, state, and federal agencies are enacting legislation or adopting policies to protect witnesses whose cooperation with law enforcement authorities or testimony in a court of law would endanger their lives or those of their families. Protection may be as simple as providing a police escort to the courtroom, offering temporary residence in a safe house, or using modern communications technology, such as video conferencing, for testimony. There are other cases, though, where cooperation by a witness is critical to successful prosecution, but the reach and strength of the threatening criminal group is so powerful that extraordinary measures are required to ensure the witness's safety. Witness Protection Authority, a government, police, prosecutorial, or judicial authority overseeing and coordinating implementation of the Witness Protection Program and making decisions on such matters as admittance, duration of protection, measures to be applied, operational policies, and procedures. A person who has taken part in an offense connected with a criminal organization possesses important knowledge about the organization's structure, method of operation, activities, and links with other local or foreign groups. These individuals are known by a variety of names, including cooperating witnesses, witness collaborators, justice collaborators, and state witnesses. There is no moral element involved in their motivation to cooperate. Many of them cooperate with the expectation of receiving immunity, or at least a reduced prison sentence and physical protection for themselves and their families. They are among the main participants in witness protection programs. The combination of lenience in, or even immunity from, prosecution with witness protection is considered a powerful tool in the successful prosecution of organized crime. However, the practice can raise ethical issues as it may be perceived as rewarding criminals with impunity for their crimes. To address those concerns, a growing number of legal systems provide that the benefit to collaborators is not complete immunity for their involvement in criminal activities, but rather a sentence reduction that may be granted only at the end of their full cooperation in the trial process. Legislation and policy clearly separate admission to a witness protection program from any benefits that participants may be granted by the prosecution or court with respect to past criminal behavior, and they provide that justice collaborators must serve some prison time for their crimes. Within the penitentiary system, special measures are required to protect the life of justice collaborators. A special branch of the prison administration usually administers them in coordination with the protection unit. They include A. Separation from the general prison population, B. Use of a different name for the prisoner witness, C. Special transportation arrangements for in-court testimony, D. Isolation in separate detention units at the prison, or even in special prisons. Sometimes prisoner witnesses commit new crimes after their release from prison and admission to the program and are subsequently terminated from witness protection. To ensure that their return to prison would not endanger their lives because of their previous cooperation, the prison administration may place them in an inmate monitoring program and house them separately from other prisoners who are known to pose a danger to them. Following their release from prison, justice collaborators may be resettled to a new, secret location under a different identity if the threat to their life persists and other conditions are also fulfilled. Family members of justice collaborators, however, may be admitted to the program while the witness is still in custody. Schemes have been developed that are distinct from witness protection programs, but are still based on the principle of making it more difficult to trace at-risk and intimidated witnesses and their families. Those schemes apply to cases that do not warrant the permanent relocation and change of identity of the witness. They may be ordered in the pre-trial or trial phase and provide either for a series of physical security measures implemented by the regular police or for evidentiary rules enacted by the courts. Such schemes are often referred to as alternative measures to witness protection programs. Target hardening. Security measures should be considered in all instances where witnesses genuinely believe that there is an imminent threat or danger against their lives or their families' lives as a result of their involvement in assisting the police in investigating a criminal case. In the majority of cases, witnesses do not face a life-threatening situation. Instead, they suffer verbal threats, intimidation, harassment, assault, property damage, or simply fear of reprisal as a result of their cooperation with the police. To provide support and security to such witnesses, the police may put a security program in place. The program may be established either by law or as a policy. it would generally provide for a series of enhanced police measures to discourage criminals wanting to harm the witness. The measures taken would be proportional to the threat and of limited duration. They could include A. Temporary change of residence to a relative's house or a nearby town. B. Close protection, regular patrolling around the witness or their family's house, escort to and from the court, and provision of emergency contacts. C. Arrangement with the telephone company to change the witness's telephone number or assign him or her an unlisted telephone number. D. Monitoring of mail and telephone calls. E. Installation of security devices in the witness's home, such as security doors, alarms, or fencing. F. Mobile telephones with emergency numbers. G. Use of discrete premises to interview and brief the witness. The arrangement of temporary accommodation in safe houses for victim witnesses is among the measures widely used. In some cases, the accommodation is located in specifically designated housing units where witnesses can recover and where access is allowed only to support groups, such as non-governmental organizations, social workers, and medical staff. Such designated units for the protection of witnesses under threat may be of limited usefulness, since they are in locations known to the community and easily disclosed. For protection purposes, a safe house may not always be a static point, in other words, in a designated location, but any location not generally known as the usual residence of the individual under protection, where the police can monitor and control all access and communication. It can be as simple as an apartment or hotel room.
We're so sorry if we caused you any pain.
Well, you heard it, my friends, right? That's from Jay EMBREE himself, using AI tools with a narrator's AI voice. By the way, that voice also does true crime, ironically. But anyway, a lot of information there, my friends, on WITSEC. But I went over, when I described WITSEC briefly, my friends, that there's some things that the FBI don't tell you. And and by the way, my friends, as a critique to Jay EMBREE, or just a fact, and I think you got to ask why, Jay EMBREE, you didn't put that video out on WITSEC for 7 months. You did that WITSEC video, not including the other day. You did that video 7 months ago, and you just finally replayed it after I exposed you and claimed that I was pretty sure you didn't talk about WITSEC, which I was incorrect. And again, I apologize, Jay EMBREE. I'm sorry for that. I retract my statement. I'm glad you played it, Jay EMBREE. And it's about time that you played it again finally. And it took somebody exposing you, critiquing you, to finally have to play this valuable information to audiences. You see, but again, my friends, where Jay EMBREE, I think, leads us astray and leads the public astray. He's trying to convince you, seemingly, that this atrocity took place, that the hit was carried out, giving a lot of power, therefore, to the Fed, or to the Fetty Bros, as he always likes to talk about, right? Show you. Even on the WITSEC video, he couldn't help himself, right? He put a picture, didn't you, Jay EMBREE, of the Fetty Bros and the Aryan family. Well, I'll tell you something, my friends. In my opinion, Jay EMBREE seems to be giving a lot of power to some evildoers within these organizations, because he's making it seem, just like the FBI is trying to convince you, my friends, that the hit took place. Except the FBI doesn't tell you that, the Aryan family were targeting the students. The FBI, of course, are not going to tell you that truth, my friends, because this is where I agree with Jay EMBREE, and a lot of us do. Yes, those students were targeted. And yes, Jay EMBREE, you're probably correct in that some members of the Aryan family, the Aryan Knights, even Fetty Bros, they targeted those students. They probably wanted to, unfortunately, unalive them or do some serious damage to them. And why? Because if Jay EMBREE's correct, and others, and they may well be, that Xana's stepmother and father, they most likely, first of all, we know they trafficked hardcore drugs, right? And Jay EMBREE and others have gone through their court docs where they kept getting charged. They would go to prison at times. They'd get released on furloughs, I believe. Anyway, they got deal after deal is the point, my friends, right? So the point being that Jay Embry might be correct. They may well have been confidential informants. And then he takes another leap, and he may be correct, that they snitched. They possibly snitched on some of these gang bangers or cartel members. And if that's correct, and when you do that, we all know that part of the motto with the gang bangers, whether it be Aryan Family, the Aryan Knights, some of the cartel groups, organizations, they tell you, if they can't get to the snitch, and often they'll brutalize and unalive, take out a snitch, right? But if they can't get to the snitch, you know what I'm about to say, don't you, everyone? Yes. They will go after, as Jay Embry says, sometimes the offspring. In this case, try to go after these young, beautiful adults. That being Kaylee Gonzalez, 21 years old. Madison Mogan, her best friend, 21 years old, right? Xander Canuto, 20 years old. And Ethan Chapman, the 6'3", 6'4", strapping, handsome young guy, by the way. And of course, the women were beautiful, vivacious, intelligent students. So yes, my friends, Jay Embry, he's correct. That's a real reality that takes place at times, my friends. And that in this case, with the IDAHO4, those students, I think part of the reality is that they were targeted. But here is where I disagree with Jay Embry, my friends. And we'll talk more about in future videos, because this is more of an apology video. It's supposed to be. But I just got to say this again, my friends, that the feds, I truly believe this, my friends, if you look at the evidence, they protected those students. They had surveillance all over the house, all over the neighborhoods. Even Steve G admitted they had surveillance around the house, my friends. And that meant they would have also had physical patrol, people all over the place, my friends. They were protecting those students. There's no way they would allow this huge operation out front that we saw, by the way. They wouldn't allow assailants to do all this. There's no way, in my opinion, and get out clean. Come on. And leave 2 surviving roommates, right? You got 2 surviving roommates, a 911 call delayed 8-9 hours. It makes no sense unless the feds went in there. They did their job, I believe, my friends, and they did what they call an extraction removal operation in the cover of darkness. But Jay Embry tells you the complete opposite without even mentioning the word extraction operation, what the feds actually do. Okay? My friends, I think it's really important to focus on this extraction operation theory because there's a lot of validity to it. And we don't have to believe that just because Jay Embry keeps telling you the atrocity happened, going along with the FBI and the court docs and the defense attorney, you don't have to believe it, my friends. Let's use reason, logic, common sense here, and let's understand more of these federal programs. You see, part of the WITSEC program that hopefully you just listened to from Jay Embry himself with his AI tools that he used, my friends, part of what they don't tell you, here's what's so important, my friends, and I think it really brings it home to the real truth of what went down on November 13, 2022 in the IDAHO4 case and those students, my friends. You know what really went down? Again, it was a psyop, my friends. And that huge operation out front, those weren't assailants. That was the feds. Do you think the feds are going to allow somebody to sit in a car for 3 to 4 hours, a potential assailant, another one smoking a cigarette, Jay Embry and others showed you pacing back and forth, right? You got the dumpster guy, potentially, we're supposed to believe that maybe leaving a weapon at some point and then picking it up from the dumpster, walking over to the neighborhood at 1122 King Road. No, my friends, I would argue that's all feds conducting the stage psyop, my friends. But a real also extraction operation at some point, probably about 3 in the morning, when the house apparently went completely dark between 3:30. They did the extraction operation. They got those students the hell out of there, my friends. And obviously Dylan and Bethany, the 2 surviving roommates, reason, logic, common sense, we know they weren't the targets, my friends. They weren't the targets of any Aryan Family, Aryan Knights, or any other evildoers. And so the feds would have told Dylan Morrison, I'm sure, and Bethany Funk, my friends, they would have debriefed them. Again, part of the feds' job. And they would have told them in no uncertain terms, either that night, or as I said in my last video, it could have been pre-planned. And they said to Dylan and Bethany, do not call 911 for 8 or 9 hours. We're going to get these students out of here. And we got to get them relocated. Out of town, man, right? Probably out of the country. So, again, my friends, I think you understand now where I really strongly disagree with Jay Embry. And my friends, again, I think it's a very dangerous proposition and theory that Jay Embree is going along with the FBI narrative on, that this atrocity took place. No, it did not take place, in my opinion. But again, I apologize to Jay Embree because to his credit, he did show you and talked about the WITSEC program in his own way. And that's very important. But again, my friends, I meant to say, what they don't tell you is that the feds, this is so important, it's written in law that the feds can actually stage a violent event if a confidential informant has been compromised, right? With their cover blown. Can I repeat that to you, everyone? Please don't go away. Are you ready? Get ready for if your socks haven't been blown off or your hat, maybe it will be by now. And maybe this will blow Jay Embree's shades right off his eyes. He always likes to wear shades. Gotta tease you, Jay Embree. Why do you wear those shades 24/7, dude, on your videos? I wonder. Anyway, but no, again, the feds, it's codified in law, my friends. Don't take it from me. Look it up yourself. As I said in the last video, everyone, the feds can legally stage a violent event if a confidential informant is compromised. So why am I telling you this today, my friends? Why do I want you to give some serious thought about that and absorb that information? And why do I think it's vitally important? Well, I think it relates to the IDAHO4 case, my friends. Right down to that night, my friends, that the feds went in there, they staged all this, right? I mean, again, they didn't even treat this like a biohazard, my friends. We all know this. It's been talked about, right, everyone? Well, the reason why they wouldn't have treated it largely like a biohazard, again, not wearing proper gloves, not wearing proper PPE, the forensic scientists half the time. Why? Because, again, there was no atrocity, my friends, and there was no blood. See, Jay Embree doesn't tell you any of this, my friends. Jay Embree apparently hasn't addressed as well. He addresses that the 911 call was, he thinks, coerced. I agree with you, Jay Embree, but why don't you say, isn't it curious how the students, even if they apparently made the call, even though it was coerced, but why isn't it anybody mentioning or the friends of the roommates? Nobody mentioned blood. And I got to give credit to Pete at Murder Metal Mayhem, a great channel. Check him out, my friends. He thought that was very strange too. That doesn't make sense. If there was so much blood and it was a real bloody crime scene, obviously at some point in the 911 call, most likely, they're going to be mentioning the blood, the smell, whatever, right? Especially the scene of the blood all over the place, right? A quadruple unaliving stabbings, but none of that took place, my friends. You didn't hear any of that because it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Did you hear that, Jay Embree? It didn't happen. Anyway, these are my thoughts and opinions, everyone, again, but I think a lot of the facts back it up when you really connect those dots, as I said, my friends. But again, sincere apology to you, Jay Embree, and that you talked about the WITSEC program. And thank you. I've just shown my audience. Hopefully they listened. They did listen to your AI tools that you used to put out some valuable information on the WITSEC program and what it's all, or what a lot of it's about. Again, I showed you what they didn't talk about. And one of the most important aspects, again, my friends, is part of that WITSEC program at times in this system. The feds can legally stage a violent event. They can stage it if a confidential informant is compromised. So I believe in the IDAHO4, my friends, as many people have talked about. There was at least one confidential informant probably living at 1122 King Road, whether it be Bethany Funk, and I think she was a confidential informant. You can't find any history on her before 2015. I don't think Jay Embree's ever told you that, right? And her parents, they worked with the feds apparently for, drug investigations and even sex trafficking, I think. And her uncles apparently work with the feds. So there's a lot of questions about Bethany Funk. But regardless, my friends, even Kaylee Gonzalez could have been one of the confidential informants. Look at her father. Steve G, I believe, as I said in my last video, my friends, I think he acts like a fed. He looks like a fed. He is a fed at this point. And we'll talk more about Steve G. In my opinion, I think he is, my friends. We can't trust Steve G. So finally, I just wanted to say that, everyone. Again, I think it was a staged event. I showed you what the feds have written into law. But again, to Jay Embree's credit, everyone, he put out elements of information on the WITSEC program. But again, that WITSEC program from the FBI itself, my friends, they do not tell you, and I'm sure they do this on purpose, they don't tell you the real reality as well as part of this system of witness protection that, the feds can literally stage a violent event if a confidential informant has been compromised. And we know probably one or more of those students were confidential informants working with law enforcement, you know, the U.S. Marshals, the feds. They were working with the FBI, the feds, in helping them in some way with criminal investigations that were going on. Probably to do with drugs. Could have even been to do with sex trafficking for all we know, my friends, right? But we saw the result, right? The feds did major drug busts before the IDAHO4 so-called atrocity that we're made out to believe, right? And afterwards, right? What was it? A few months later, they one of the biggest drug busts in at least 23, 25 years in Washington State, my friends. So obviously staging this quadruple unaliving, putting out, I believe, this highly emojed narrative, stage narrative to put it in your palate, right? Oh yeah, we got to make the public, try to make them believe that it happened. It obviously worked, my friends. It protected the students. Again, let's give feds the credit. They rescued those students, I believe, and it helped shield the feds' drug investigations, therefore, my friends, right? It shielded their drug investigations from being derailed by literally having to stage this event and protecting their confidential informant. And for whatever reason, they thought all 4 students, my friends, were in danger. The feds did. And there's no way they would have allowed an atrocity happen that night, in my opinion. There's just no way. Reason, logic, common sense. We'll talk more about that in future videos. But again, Jay Embry, dude, I apologize to you, man, because I thought you didn't talk about Whitsick at all. And you did. And you did. Okay? Anyway, and Jay Embry, by the way, before I go into the audience, I think, Jay Embry, were you being a little bit dishonest? You know, you did say that you forgot my channel's name. Well, here it is on the big screen for everyone and for you, Jay Embry. It's called ESTEY'S Crime Maze. That's my channel, dude. I hope you might mention my channel next time and not forget, as you said you did. Thanks, Jay Embry. If you mention my channel, I'd appreciate it. After all, I showed some balls, I think, and courage. I just did an apology video for you and your community and audience out there because I was incorrect. I thought you didn't talk about the Whitsick program, and you did. Thanks, Jay Embry. Anyway, thank you, everyone, very much for listening and sharing your times with me. And really appreciate it. And let's take this channel to a whole other level, man, my friends. We're digging in on the IDAHO4. We'll cover other true crime cases as well in the future. But the IDAHO4, it's the wildest, craziest true crime case, at least that I know. I hopefully a lot of you guys and gals might concur, right? But it's not as tragic as we've been made out to. Not even close, my friends. These students are alive, in my opinion. That should be celebrated. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Love ya. Have an amazing, beautiful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. And again, I hope you subscribe. Smash that like button if you enjoy my videos. Hit that bell icon. And feel free to leave me a comment. I read them and appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. And maybe you'll share this video. Appreciate that, too. I'm Jason. I go by ESTEY'S Crime Maze. Jay Embry, you've been put on notice. I just told you again my YouTube channel name. I hope you'll address me and tell the audience. And again, I apologize. I'm sorry, Jay Embry. Bye, everyone. See ya.